Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. We are back. Week 8, college football season. Welcome to Coast2Coast College Football Pregame Show. I'm your host, Uncle Shally. Top left, my first co-host. Who's got background noise? My Buckeye brother from another mother, Mr. Cottrell Simpson. How are you doing this morning, sir?
Doing good, man. I'm doing good. How are you feeling?
I'm good. It's a crispy Saturday morning here in the Northeast. It's definitely football weather. We have a lot to talk about. We have a great show. We have a big upset last night. We have to get into. I know Alex is probably cheering on from the West Coast last night, watching it as it unfolded. But top right corner, Mr. Alex Elmore, Mr. I Black. How are you this morning, sir?
I'm still licking my wounds. Still licking my wounds from last week, but at least we get to kind of, just like Dan Lanning said, we played that game last Saturday. We're focused on Rutgers. So today I'm focused on this show, not the past, and I'm happy to be here. Coast to coast, baby.
Well, I'm glad you found some solace and you're going to move on to Rutgers this week. But that being said, a lot going on in college football this week. We got a lot to talk about. Like I said, we had a huge upset last night that's going to have some implications, and we'll get into that at some point. Big preview, another really big slate of college football games this afternoon. And we still got to do our normal stuff at the grill. We got previews, we got pick 'em, we got everything. So we got to get moving. So, Alex, as always, sir, get us going.
Shotgun, DC right, flip 90, dig, on the center, ready?
All right, well, welcome back to another episode of Break the Huddle Weekly. This week, we got some kind of big news. I'm sure we'll have a little bit of a discussion topics about it. No, I do not want to restart my computer. I hate my laptop does that. Anyway, we're going to start off right away with James Franklin fired. Life comes at you quick, y'all. From 3-0 to 3-3 and in the unemployment line. James Franklin started off great in the top 5 team with Penn State this year. Losses to Oregon, UCLA, and then ultimately lost to Northwestern. Ultimately cost him his job this week. And now there's a huge job opening over at Penn State. Obviously, this happened earlier in the week, so there's been a lot of talk, a lot of speculation this week around that Penn State job opening. Cottrell, let's start with you. What does this mean? What does the James Franklin firing mean? And do you have anybody in mind that you think might be a good fit for that Penn State job?
Yes, I mean, ultimately for me, I feel like this is something that if you're a Penn State fan, it's one of those like it had to happen at some point. Like, of course, you didn't want it to be this year. You truly had national championship aspirations with this team and the roster and, everything that you had assembled, everybody coming back. But ultimately, we kind of joked about it, but we're also pretty serious when we say it as well with James Franklin and how he is not the guy to lead your team to a national championship. I think he's great in terms of rebuilding a program. He's great in terms of, winning 9-10 games every season, but he's not the guy to get you over the hump. And it's crazy because even in the big games, like the Oregon game, I don't necessarily put on Franklin. It's just Drew Aller is an experienced QB, and he made some bad mistakes in that one. The college football semifinal game, Drew Aller throws a very bad pick. James Franklin can't change that from him throwing that ball. So I think some of it is just unfortunate the way that it's all unraveled here the last, season and a half. But at the same time, at some point, I mean, he's been there for 11, 12 years. And, in the big games, I think he's only won 3 top 10 matchups or 3 top 5, whatever the case may be. It's some crazy number that, absolutely shouldn't be the case there. So it was time. I think they made the right move there. But as far as names that I'm thinking about that would make sense, a few that come to mind for me would be Matt Campbell is one from Iowa State. I think that would be a step up for him. And I think he would be the perfect kind of guy to come in, still have the culture. He has the Midwest recruiting pipeline there. So I think that can make a ton of sense. I also think that while I don't know if they necessarily get hired, guys you absolutely have to call would be Nick Saban and Urban Meyer. I don't know how either of those conversations go. I doubt that either of them take the Penn State job, but I think it's worth at least making the call. But then the other guy that, for me that ultimately comes to mind is Kenny Dillingham out at Arizona State, the young up-and-coming coach. And I think that with what he's done at Arizona State, you would think that if he comes to Penn State, Sam Leavitt would come with him. And he turned around Arizona State pretty fast there. So those are just like the four that come to mind right away for me, with realistically being Dillingham and Campbell as like the two that I probably would push for the most there, because I don't think Urban or Saban are leaving their cushioned broadcast jobs. So just kind of where I'm at.
Bill, how about for you?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I mean, if you've ever watched movies or anything like that, and you always hear about like the guy that's like the fixer, that's kind of what James Franklin is. And if we're being honest, you have to look at the situation he came into at Penn State, and he did a really good job. He did a really good job of getting them back to where they are right now. But Trell mentioned, he's not the guy. He's just proven to be the guy that's not going to get you over that last hump. He'll get you to the top of the mountain, but when you got to win the battle to stay up there and be the top guy, he's not the guy to do it. Again, I think he did a great job at Penn State. Kind of, in a weird way, kind of reinstilling a, winning culture and a culture that, the school could be proud of. He's just not going to be the guy that's going to win you a national championship. And I think there's, again, we've talked about it on the show before. There's not a lot of guys out there. Like, don't fool yourself. There's not 40 of these guys floating around. There's not. There's like 10, and there's 10, and there's you got guys like Dan Lanning and stuff like that have just gotten into it, that are kind of knocking on the door. But there's not a ton of Kirby Smarts and Ryan Days and people like that running around. There's not. So this is a huge job opening. I would say, for me, I still think it'll be the best job opening regardless of what happens in Florida. But Florida is also a very good job. But I think losing. Listen, we've all watched our teams for a long time. There's always a UCLA type game every year where just nothing goes right. Your guys can't hold on to the football. Like, just everything that could go wrong goes wrong. And sometimes your teams win, sometimes they lose. But usually one loss doesn't kill you. Losing at UCLA is one thing. Cottrell brought up the Oregon loss. That loss to me is not on James Franklin. I thought he actually coached a really good game in that game. To Cottrell's point, Drew Aller can't throw that football at the end of that game. But coming home then and coming out flat and pretty much getting embarrassed by Northwestern, that's a different animal. That's hard to kind of keep in the cage there. Losing 3 in a row then at that point is kind of looking like a direction where that team, I don't want to say lost the team, but the team is just not headed in the right direction. And I think they were smart to pull the plug now and get ahead of it and really try to be able to have their first choice of who they want. For me, Kirk Cignetti would have been the guy. Indiana knew that was coming and made the move very quickly to extend him, probably overpay him a little bit. We'll see how that all plays out. But they did not want to get into the bidding war for the services of Cignetti with Penn State because they're just not going to win that. So they extended him and took care of him really quick, which I think was a smart move because I think he was going to be at the very top of that list. Hearing a lot of people think Matt Rule has the inside track for the job. I mean, you saw Nebraska have another bad loss on Thursday night at Minnesota. Matt Rule, for me personally, I think is a little overachiever, but he's done it with programs where nobody had any expectations or, there's really not a standard there per se. I think Matt Rule falls kind of into the same category as James Franklin. I don't know if he's a guy that gets you over the hump. I agree with Cottrell. You have to call Nick Saban and Urban Meyer. I think they both say thank you for the call and hang up, and they're gonna go back to their cushy multi-million, working 1 day a week jobs. And then Cottrell mentioned two big ones for me. Matt Campbell, Kenny Dillingham are definitely on that short list for me. Matt Campbell, obviously, I think he's a consistent guy. I think he's a little bit of I think he overachieves Iowa State. I don't know what he does on a national level. I think Dillingham being even a younger guy than even Campbell is, and having the possibility of bringing Levitt with him, like Cottrell mentioned, it allows you to probably not have that gap where you fall off, where you're probably competitive next year. And he's a young guy, and again, I think he would bring a lot of excitement and enthusiasm. Those I think are the top two, and then obviously I think Rule's going to factor in because of just the ties that he has in the school. And then Cottrell, I noticed that you left out the guy we talked about on Wednesday. I know you don't want to put the Juju out there, but I think Brian Hartline is going to be an interesting name to watch. I think obviously with the recruiting he's done in that area, I think a little bit of maybe a gamble to go from OC at a very big school in Ohio State where he's been very successful, to handing over him a whole program is, it's a step. But if you interview him and you believe in him and think he could be the guy that could be your guy for the next 20 years, then maybe you make that jump. Somebody's going to eventually. That guy's going to be a head coach somewhere. So, and if you're looking at it from his point of view, we've joked about it the last couple of years. Like, I don't know if that's the one you leave Ohio State for, or if that's the right move. I don't know if he gets a better opportunity than Penn State to start his career. So I think that's a name to watch. I think it could be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you guys kind of said it. I mean, 3 losses in a row, especially the last two to two teams that shouldn't even, hold your jockstrap essentially in UCLA and Northwestern. As much as I'm a fan of Preston Stone and Northwestern had no business in beating Penn State this year. Here are a couple names that we haven't mentioned yet that I've kind of seen floating around. One is a name that I feel like it's a long shot, but they say that Penn State's going to be shooting for the stars with this hiring position or with this coaching position. So one of the names I've heard thrown out there a lot is, and I'll get you guys' opinion on this. What do you guys think about Marcus Freeman, head coach of Notre Dame? Obviously, last year's runner-up for the college football playoff. Not saying that he has the coaching experience, the tenure, or the history, or anything like that with Penn State to put him at the forefront, but his name has been kind of thrown out there a lot. Do we think that Penn State is a job that would make Marcus Freeman leave Notre Dame?
I mean, I personally don't see it. If I'm being honest, I think Notre Dame is it's one of those programs. It's in that top 12, really wherever you slice it there. I think if there was a discourse between him and Notre Dame, or, there was like the button of heads and things like that, but he's literally only gotten better every year. So for me, I don't think Penn State would be the job that could lure him away from Notre Dame. I honestly, and this is not even like being a homer or anything like that, like I think the only job that would get Marcus Freeman away from Notre Dame is either an NFL job, or if Ohio State had an opening because they retired or went to the NFL or whatever. Like, I think that's the only place Marcus Freeman would go if he left Notre Dame.
I'm going to say it's like 75-25 he stays. Penn State will pay him more money than Notre Dame will. Notre Dame is very weird with how they pay their head coaches. It was one of the big things with Brian Kelly when he was there. The only other, I think Penn State and Notre Dame, to Cottrell's point, are both in that top 12, no matter where you want to slot everybody. The only thing that would be different between Notre Dame and Penn State would be the recruiting restrictions. It's easier to get kids, and it's not easy to get into Penn State, don't get me wrong, but it's nowhere near the hassle it is with Notre Dame. So me personally, I think he leaves. I think he's done a great job at Notre Dame. But Notre Dame's also one of those jobs where there's just inherent everyday pressure no matter what type thing. Because their fans are nuts and a little unrealistic. But to Cottrell's point, I haven't heard anything about him butting heads with the administration or the athletic department. Like, I don't think there's any, like Cottrell said, discourse or unrest or anything there. I don't think he goes. If anything, I think if he's smart, he might play the game and you know take a phone call here or there and maybe squeeze some more money out of Notre Dame. But I think that's how this probably ends. I think he stays Notre Dame.
Okay. And then obviously, like you had mentioned, Brian Hartline, offensive coordinator for Ohio State. Obviously, wide receiver play has been a huge disappointment for Penn State, in an area they need to improve. Obviously, Brian Hartline would be a huge coaching improvement on that front. You know, he's coached guys like McLaurin, Garrett Wilson, Olave, Emeka Egbuka, Marvin Harrison Jr., guys like that are in the NFL having success. So I think that's a huge name to throw out there. Another name, though, that hasn't seen a head coaching job in his career so far. Is this job too big for Will Stein, the offensive coordinator at Oregon, to take over? Do you think this is too big of a job for a first-time head coach?
I don't think
Yes.
so. I don't.
Ooh,
I mean,
okay.
I think if you're saying Brian Hartline can do it, I mean, I don't know why you're saying you could say Will Stein couldn't do it.
Well,
I
I
think
haven't said that Hartline could do it. Like, I'm against.
You don't want, because you don't want him to
No,
leave.
I mean, I don't. It's not even just that I don't want him to leave. Like last year, I thought like Michigan State would have been the perfect job for Brian Hartline. Do I think he could be do better than Michigan State? Absolutely, but like that's a good starting spot for a first time head coach. Like Michigan State is a big time program. Like they're not top 12, but they're 100% a top 25 program in the country. Like when everything is rolling, like you have the fan base behind you. You would have the recruiting. They spend money. Like obviously we saw Mel Tucker get paid there before he ultimately got fired for calls. So like I just think if you're Penn State, you want to go after a guy like Franklin was the turnaround guy. Like you gave him the shot to be the guy there. He turned it around. Like at this point, you are chasing national championships. I'm saying in my opinion, I'm not going after a guy to get his footing and then starting to figure it out at Penn State. Now, of course, there are situations where it works. Like Dan Lanning hadn't been a head coach before. He goes to Oregon and they have the ultimate success. But Dan Lanning isn't every coaching situation. Like for me, I try to go get the more experienced guy when I know what they bring to the table. And just me saying it out loud, I think Dabo Swinney is another name that could potentially be brought up here because of the discourse that he has with Clemson and everything that's going on around there.
I'm going to say no on Dabo unless he completely does a 180 on a lot of things, because it's already been proven. If you're going to go to the Big Ten, and especially with the way that now Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, those teams have committed to spending money and doing NIL and the transfer portal. If you're not going to do that, you're already 5 steps behind those 3 schools. You're not going to keep up. I don't disagree with what you're saying with Hartline at all on the surface. I think it really depends on what Penn State wants here, because I think you look at Dan Lanning, and I think we're being honest. I think when they hired him, I don't think they thought it was going to be that quick. I think they thought there would probably be a little bit of a curve with Lanning, but they were like, he's going to be our guy for the next 10 years, that when he gets there, we're going to be where we want to be. So I think that's what Penn State has to decide on. Do they want a guy that they think can come in right now and not take a step backwards and maybe get you over the top, or do they want to invest in a younger guy like a Hartline or somebody like that says, you know what, maybe the next 2 years are a little bit rough, but he's ultimately the guy we think 10 years from now wins us a national championship and stays with us forever. So that I think the decision is me, because I think, again, to your point, I think it's a little unrealistic to think if they do hire Brian Hartline, he comes in next year and wins 10 games. That's probably not going to happen. So I agree with you on that front. I think it's really going to come down to what Penn State values and what they want long term. And again, and maybe that's where Dillingham kind of meets both sides. Yeah. definitely have long-term success with him, but he's probably the guy, to your point, that if he brings Levitt and a bunch of other kids with him, I think probably ends up keeping a lot of kids on campus at that point, and then probably splits the difference, and you're probably still really successful next year. So,
Alex, do you think that Will Stein would be like, this job would be too big for him? Like, I'm sure you think highly of Will Stein, just like I think highly of Hartline, and I think both of them are going to be head coaches. But like for me, I just think Penn State is probably a little too upper echelon for both of them, at least to start out.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I like Will Stein more for the UCLA gig than I do the Ohio State job. Though what's his name? Neuheisel's son, he's killing it as the interim coach over at UCLA. I wouldn't be surprised if they extend the offer to him. But if they do open up the interview process, the outside candidates, I do think Will Stein's best fit is going to be UCLA, staying on that West Coast. They already have really nice personnel that would fit his offensive scheme. And Penn State's, like I said, Will Stein runs like a fast-paced, get to the edges, run after the catch type offense. And Penn State doesn't really have that type of personnel right now. So I think if he did go to Penn State, I think it would, kind of like Bill said, it would take one or two recruiting cycles to get the right guys into Penn State for his offense to be successful there. That's why I think that UCLA would be his better fit. But no, I don't think it's too much of a job. I think it's a huge learning curve. I think that's huge expectation. That's like graduating college and then your first job is at Apple as the lead like software guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's such a huge job for your first gig that I don't know if you'd want that pressure. You know, obviously you want that job. That's the precipice of what you want your coaching career to go. I just don't think that he goes there on his first stop. I think he's realistic about the right way to kind of get to that type of program. So I think Will Stein could do it. I don't think he will. I don't think it's the right fit offensively for him with the personnel they have there, even with everybody that's probably going to leave, the people that he'll bring in. I still think that UCLA would be a better fit for him. But here's a question for both of you guys, actually, and then we'll move on from this James Franklin topic. Just really quick, where do you think James Franklin ends up? Obviously, he has that thing in his contract where he has to look for a job in coaching or commentating. Where do you think James Franklin ends up? Do you think he coaches college next year? Do you think he ends up on a high school sideline? What are you guys thinking?
I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, I think we're assuming the Florida job's coming open. I don't think Florida's hiring James Franklin. Arkansas is an interesting situation. There's a lot of heat around Michigan State right now. That one I think is the most logical for him just to jump back in the Big Ten and pretty much be in the same recruiting area. I actually personally, I think he takes the year off. I think he will I think he'll go commentate for a year, kind of really relax, and see where it goes from there. Unless somebody makes him an offer he can't refuse, or there's some job that we're not talking about right now that we don't think is going to be open comes open.
I think it's going to, because you got to also remember that we're going to have a huge domino effect, right? So if the coach for Penn State is somewhere from a different school, so like hypothetically, if Notre Dame says, Marcus Freeman from Notre Dame says, I want to go take the Penn State job, then you're going to have a head coaching job at Notre Dame that's open. And then they may go get a head coach and then, just kind of domino effect from there. So I am very curious to see what happens from that, because I think that would be the only way at this point, like where a job that you're truly not expecting somebody to have an opening would happen here. But for me, though, I think the two that I'm thinking about, like that we know, would be Arkansas and Virginia Tech. Two programs that have, I don't necessarily want to say Arkansas has like a history of winning there, but I mean, I think Arkansas is looking to turn it around, like with the talent they have there. And then on the flip side, while of course Beamer is always the first thought, and South Carolina hasn't been, incredible this year by any stretch of the means there. So I mean, I think that's still a possibility there too. I think Virginia Tech is a school that has a tradition of of having competitive football teams. And if you're looking to turn it around, like James Franklin is the perfect guy to do that for you.
That is a perfect. I think Virginia Tech is perfect for him. They go 10-2, 9-3 every year. Everybody on that campus will be ecstatic. He'll be able to recruit Virginia, Maryland, and all those places again. Control wins. I think that's a great job for him.
Yeah, not to mention with the ACC not having as deep of a top to bottom of the conference like a Big Ten does, it would make it easy for Virginia Tech to be in that ACC championship conversation at a 10-2 record every single year, and that's a college football playoff berth staring at you right in the face. So I think that's a great thing. I also think that a job opening that we haven't really talked about lately, but that's starting to get a little bit hot, that's Florida State. They're 3-3 right now. That's a situation that we're going to keep an eye on. Obviously, if they finish this year 6-6, 7-5 after last year, we may be looking at a Florida State job that's also has a job opening. We may see Florida and Florida State both come available this year, and then if that happens, all hell is going to break loose. I'll tell you that right now.
I'll tell you we all know the number one candidate for that job.
That conversation starts and ends with Deion. If Deion wants it, the search is over, and that's who's going there.
I would say I agree with you, but with the way his health has been, like that's a huge move to make, taking over a whole new way. He did it obviously well at Colorado. His health was in much better shape. With his health now, I mean, we saw him on the field. He was struggling to walk around. He's even mentioned in press conferences. Taking over Florida State program, that's going to be almost 10 times the amount of stress. I don't know if he takes that job just because of the way his health is right now. So I think it could be who knows. But again, that's also a situation that I want to keep an eye on is
sure.
how many schools in Florida have job openings at the end of the year. We're going to keep this train rolling. Obviously, we got a lot of jam-packed stuff on the show. We're going to jump down to NIL for high schooler, ? There's a current lawsuit filed in Ohio that will allow top high school wide receiver to profit from NIL. The complaint names the Ohio High School Athletic Association, which prohibits its athletes from profiting off their NIL name, image, and likeness. The lawsuit was filed Wednesday in the Court of Common Pleas in Franklin County. So this is one of the top recruited wide receivers. I believe he's I can't remember his name, but he is committed to Ohio State. Yep, committed to Ohio State right now. And he's filing to try to get he thinks he has $100,000 NIL capacity to earn while he's in high school. What do we think about this? Do you think this is something that's going to kind of start a ball rolling down the hill where high schoolers are going to be getting NIL deals? Do you think this is a one-off situation? Do you think this will get shot down in court and not be a thing after this year? I mean, this is an interesting lawsuit here.
My thing is that I think he is one of those guys that is the perfect person to like be the face of this case here. So of course, I know a little bit more about him because he is an Ohio State commit here. So just to kind of put it in perspective too, this kid is the reigning 100-meter champion on the track and field side as well. So of course he's more known because of football, but he's also one of the fastest kids he is the fastest kid in the state of Ohio right now. So I think for him specifically, if he believes that he can have NIL deals, whether it be with ASICs, if it's on the track and field side, or if Nike wants to give him a deal, or whatever the case, Gatorade, whatever the case may be there, I really have no issue against it. The only thing though that I think makes this kind of a slippery slope is that when you have these companies that are tied to NIL, I don't want them their affiliation shouldn't be with any colleges. So the NIL deals can't influence them or say, hey, we're signed you to this deal right now while you're in high school. But, if you commit to, X school, then we're going to continue this deal and we're going to give you more money, things like that. I don't want the NIL from high school to influence the college decision. Now, in this case, he is committed to Ohio State. I know kids can change their commitments and things like that, but that's before he's getting any NIL. He already has his commitment out there on the table. So I do think this situation would be different there. But I just hope that if they do say the kids can get the NIL, because, of course, I'm all about kids making their money. If they do say that, I just don't want it to change the recruiting aspect or like give schools a step up because of they got this deal with this car dealership, whatever. And, he stays home because he already has a deal basically locked in place for the next 6 years. And he's a sophomore in high school.
Bill?
I think it's a horrible idea. One of the reasons Cottrell touched on right away with any kind of affiliation to college, because you're going to deal with that pretty much once you're graduating anyway. Like Ohio State's going to offer you blah, 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 because they have relationships with these companies. Michigan can offer you blah, 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 because this is who we do business with. High school kids should not be making money playing sports. They are truly amateurs. This is not the same type of, these high schools are not making millions and hundreds of millions of dollars profiting off this kid running track or playing football. He's a high school athlete. It is not the same. It's not a apples to apples thing like it is with the NCAA. I think if you're going to start paying high school athletes, it is going to be the biggest, ugliest, Pandora's box type thing that they've ever opened. It's a terrible idea. I don't see it happening anyway. But it'll be interesting to watch. We'll see. But again, I'm wholeheartedly against it.
Well, I mean, let's talk about every single time we see, obviously we hate to talk about it, but anytime we see, a speeding incident or a car crash with one of these kids and going 110 miles an hour, down a 55 mile an hour street, we always talk about what do you expect to happen when you put all this money and these cars in the hands of kids, essentially. And now if you allow high schoolers NIL contracts and getting cars and money and all that stuff, or who knows what they kind of stipulate, but you're just going to be putting these temptations in front of an even younger kids who are like when I was 16, I was doing some dumb stuff and I drove a 1991 Toyota Camry. Okay. I was doing dumb stuff in the car and that thing. You give a kid $100,000 NIL deal as a junior in high school, like that. I just feel like that spells more trouble than it's worth.
Alex, that's a great point, but I just want to ask you a question though off of that. Mm-hmm. If they say, hey, we can put this into a trust, you can't touch it until you are 18 years old. We'll put it into a trust for you, and it's $100,000 or whatever deal they sign. We put it in a trust, you touch it when you're 18. Does that change your opinion on that? Because I think that's a great point, because we have college kids making dumb decisions with their NIL money. High schoolers would be even dumber. So yeah, I think that's a great point. But that just made me think about, like, if you say I'm throwing in a trust, would that change your perception, I guess, on it?
Yeah, I think it would. I think that, if you made it so like, hey, you have to be 18 or you have to be enrolled in college or something like that to allow you to access that money, or even if it's put into like hey, like we'll get you $100,000 NIL deal, you're able to access it 25% of it per year once you hit 18. So essentially you have like every year you get $25,000 from it or something like that. Like there's got to be some sort of safety guards for these kids, because yes, we want them to make money and use their name, image, and likeness to kind of get the exposure and help their families out and all that good stuff. But we got to put some sort of monitoring on it to where it doesn't get out of control and crazy. Because we've seen what it does. Like we said, we've seen what it does to college age kids. You start putting that kind of money in younger kids' hands, and who knows what could happen. So I was definitely not smart with my money when I was 16, 17. So I think that's a whole thing. But on the flip side of that coin, I also, like you said, I appreciate that these kids want to start earning money, and if they're good enough at something, why not pay them for that? Why not allow them to make money doing it? So there is kind of a double-sided coin to this. I think I'm leaning towards not allowing it to happen, or setting up some sort of guidelines to where it's less risky for the student athlete. Any other comments or concerns or issues or things you want to talk about as far as NIL for high schoolers? No? All right. Well, then we're going to move over to the Big 12, Texas Tech and Kansas. were both fined over a fan behavior dispute. Texas Tech was twice penalized during their game for fans throwing tortillas onto the field. If you're familiar with Texas Tech, that's kind of their thing. They throw tortillas onto the field during the game. The Big 12, though, did ban that before the start of the season, which I didn't even know that they banned it. I would have definitely talked about that earlier in the show had I known that they banned it. But yeah, they banned it. They did it anyway. Leopold and the Raiders coach, Joe McGuire, Leopold chastised McGuire for the fans' behavior in post-game video. McGuire can be seen telling Leopold, "Coach, I can't do anything about it. You want me to do something about it? I can't." It was also rumored a pocket knife had been thrown at one of the Kansas coaches. Later, it was disproven that there was not a pocket knife thrown. Well, this is just craziness. I think it's just fans being fans. I think it's tough that you got to find the schools. But what's your guys' opinion of this issue? Is it a non-issue? Should we expect more of this from this Texas Tech fans? Obviously, with them having success this season.
I mean, obviously, if it's a tradition, I get that side of it. At the same time, I mean, I don't think. Come up with a better tradition. I mean, I know there's all these schools have chants. They do different things. Wisconsin just jump around between the third or fourth quarter. Like every school's got their own thing. I don't think any of them should involve throwing stuff on the field. So that I would get away from. I'm sure Texas Tech could come up with something else that is just as funny and something else, all the kids will grab onto. I don't like delays again, and then you get into like penalties and stupid stuff. I don't care about finding the school; that is what it is. But throwing stuff on the field, that's again. I feel like there's always one idiot that'll be like, you know what? I'm not going to throw the tortilla. I'm going to throw something else, and it's somebody always takes it too far. You risk somebody getting hurt. It's just dumb. So I would just say do something else.
Tradition is tradition, gentlemen. They've been doing this since the 80s, and now we all of a sudden have a problem with it. I think that this is one of those things where sour grapes, you lose. I mean, obviously, I do think it is like a safety issue, I guess you could say, but for the last 40 years, we've not had any issues with this tortilla toss there. And so they finally banned it this year. And I'm not even saying it's a bad idea to ban it, but I'm just saying we've had this around for 40 plus years and you really no issues until now. So I feel like this is really much about nothing. Like maybe they can change the way that they do it. But I don't know. I just feel like this is just one of those things where why is it all of a sudden becoming a thing? Like it just feels like it feels like trying to take away, like fixing something that's not broken to me.
Well, the NCAA is definitely focusing a lot more on player and fan safety. And granted, I don't think a tortilla is going to hurt anybody, but just like you said, a tortilla can escalate to something more than that. And in the 40 years they've been doing it, have they had that issue? I'm sure maybe one person in the whole stand is maybe throwing something other than a tortilla. But
funny thing about it. So the old thing used to be kids used to throw lids. Like they had plastic lids at Texas Tech. Because I looked into this before. They used to throw plastic lids onto the field. And they had an issue that happened. And then plastic lids were banned from the stadium. And so the kids were like, all right, well, we can't throw lids. What are we going to throw? We'll throw tortillas. Like they're not going to get rid of tortillas. So they started throwing tortillas on the field and it's been around ever since. So if you ban this, like they're going to figure out a way to adapt because that's what they did in the past. So tortillas to me are harmless. You're wearing helmets, you got shoulder pads on. You're not going to get out for a game because the tortilla hits you. So
how far can you even throw a tortilla?
Dude, you'd be surprised, especially if like you leave them out and they get like hard and crusty, like stale. Those things will fly like a frisbee.
I don't think
Just saying.
I don't think they're waiting for them to get hard and crusty. I think
I feel like people are buying. Yeah, they're buying
fresh,
them.
flimsy tortillas.
Yeah, they're
Oh,
buying
see,
them. They're buying them on
fly.
the snack stand and they're going to the seats and just emptying them out and chucking them.
I'm just saying, if I'm going to the game the night before, I'm opening up my pack of tortillas, I'm laying them out on the table, and then I'm going to bed.
Or you putting them to
out.
get into the stadium because you're gonna
how
have
you gonna smuggle them in?
Going through the stadium.
I'm gonna tape them to my stomach like it's their abs. I'm gonna wear an oversized sweatshirt, and then I'm gonna rip them out, and then I'm gonna be like hard tortillas for everyone, aim for the other team's coach.
And by noon, you're gonna need some Gold Bond.
Yep.
You may be right. But I'm just saying, hard tortillas fly really well. Soft tortillas, they also fly pretty well. They got that good aerodynamic to it. It's like a frisbee. Anyway, I don't think there was anything more into the story than it was just a fun little story from last week. And it's always fun when two older gentlemen coaches want to fight each other at the 50-yard line. It's always a good time. But that's it for Breaking the Huddle. All we have up next is recaps.
Let's go.
All right, gents. I know we go through all the recaps here. I'm hoping we can fly through two of these games, or at least one. Which one do you think we can fly through? I mean, Ohio State, Illinois. There's really not much to talk about there. And I think with the Texas Oklahoma game,
maybe for you, Illinois, maybe bro.
For you.
We're going to Champaign, Champaign, Illinois. Fighting Illini, Ohio State Buckeyes. Ohio State 34, Illinois 16. It's kind of more. I feel like Illinois did some good things in this game. Couldn't get away from the turnovers. Got to credit Ohio State there. Ohio State's defense again made plays when they had to. It's probably the number one unit in the country. Another big win. Thought maybe they get you guys are Penn State next, Control?
No, Penn State is a couple weeks away still. This week we got Wisconsin.
I mean, I think it's Penn State after that. Maybe I thought Wisconsin was going to be the trap game, but not now. So
you never know.
Yeah, you never know. But again, another dominant win for Ohio State. Continue to look like the best team in the country. Julian Tanks get more and more comfortable each and every week. I feel like they're giving a couple of new pages of the playbook every week. You're seeing more intricate pass patterns and layered options and stuff like that. And the defense is just doing what the defense does. They're just dominant on Caleb Downs. They look real good. Again, I think Illinois is a good team. I just don't think they're a team that's capable of beating the elite teams in the country. So I think they're going to be the outside looking in now. I think they need some help to get in to the playoff. And Ohio State just keeps trucking.
Crazy enough, though, the one thing I'll say about Illinois is, I mean, you lose, and granted, you lost by a shit ton in the Indiana game, but you lose to the number one, and now going to be, after this upcoming week, the number 2 team in the country, and you fall out of the AP poll completely. Like I don't know what the standard is now. I know we talk about the awfulness of the AP poll pretty much week to week here, but Texas has 2 losses and they're back in the poll. I get it, they just beat number 6 Oklahoma, but you lose to 1 and 2 respectively in the country, and now you're just forgotten about. Washington has looked great all year, and then they lose one game to Ohio State, which was score-wise, it wasn't necessarily close, but if you actually watch the game, it was a close, competitive game, and they're still not ranked. So to me, it's just crazy, and I'm kind of hoping that once the CFP poll actually starts, that we start to get some recognition for some non-SEC schools there, because 10 schools being ranked in the SEC, a large majority of them, I'd say they deserve to be there, but Illinois not being ranked anymore, Washington still not being ranked, it's crazy for me to see.
I mean, you put Illinois, Notre Dame on a piece of paper, take the names away, and look at strength of schedule, strength of wins. Illinois is higher than both for Notre Dame. They both have 2 losses. like you said, Illinois' losses are to number 1 and number 3. They're not ranked. And Notre Dame's up to what, 10th? Something like that now? Like
13 or 14.
Yeah, it's a joke.
Can we also be honest for a second? Like, you cannot compare apples to apples, unfortunately, in this situation, as Indiana didn't just beat Illinois. They absolutely dog walked them by 53 points.
That's fine, but they're the number 1 3 team in the country. You still can't get past the point that Notre Dame hasn't beat anybody, dude.
Let me finish.
It's the same point every week.
Who has Illinois beaten this season?
Teams in the Big Ten.
Duke. They beat Duke.
On the road. Way better than any Notre Dame win.
Okay.
Who's Notre Dame beat? Army?
Notre Dame didn't lose by 53. It
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It does matter.
Okay. But so do wins. When do losses count more than wins? That's the dumbest argument I've ever heard. It's the dumbest argument I've ever heard. If you lose to somebody, it's more important than a win. That's so dumb. That's ass backwards, dude.
No one said that.
Backwards.
Nobody said that.
Okay, then how are you saying Notre Dame should be ranked higher than Illinois?
Let me talk.
Didn't beat anybody
here. If you let me talk.
It's the same argument we've had for 3 weeks.
Yes, and if you let me talk again,
Notre Dame hasn't beat anybody yet.
You can't look at a loss to, at the time, the number 10 ranked team Indiana was by 53 points. You can't look at that loss the same as Notre Dame's 1 point loss to the number 3 team in the country. You can't look at those the same. All losses are not the same, Bill. Just like all wins are not the same.
Correct. So I'll ask again. Who has Notre Dame beat to be ranked 13th in the country?
They're Notre Dame,
I'll wait.
Bro. We already know
I'll
this.
wait.
But their losses are better than Illinois'
You
losses.
can't answer. So that's my point. Your whole point with Notre Dame is going back to who you're saying losses shouldn't count more than wins, but your only argument for them is who they lost to.
I didn't say that either. I didn't say
Who
that.
did you answer my question? Who did they beat to be 13th?
It doesn't matter.
Who? Nobody. They beat nobody. Nobody.
Talk some sense to this man.
You can't answer the question. Nobody can. Nobody can. Notre Dame fans can't even answer it.
The nice thing is that after this, literally this week is going to be the litmus test of how good Notre Dame is, because
it's a crock of shit, dude. It's a crock of shit.
Now they have a common opponent in USC who Illinois beat. So let Notre Dame go out there and if Notre Dame is that much better than Illinois, then they should beat USC by 25 tonight.
Why is USC ranked this week?
Well, they did beat.
I'll wait.
Michigan team.
Yeah, so us 4-2 is their best win. Why is USC ranked this week?
I mean, they are 5-1 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how are they ranked? Okay, but to your point earlier, how are they ranked before Washington?
Because Washington doesn't have a ranked win. USC has a
wait. What was that? What did you say?
Washington. But there's a difference, Bill. Washington preseason ranking
just
was like
just repeat.
Preseason
rankings don't mean shit once we start playing. It should be based upon what you do.
It does.
What does Washington not have?
But it does. It does not mean shit, but it does mean shit.
I think he said Washington doesn't have a ranked win, Bill.
Thank you. Who else doesn't have a ranked win?
I would say Notre Dame.
Oh, thank you, Cashel. Thank you so much. Thanks for playing along today.
Alex, do you have any questions that need to be answered? Because I'll help you out.
Well, here's the thing. I'm gonna stay calm because I know my argument holds water. Aggression says that my argument doesn't hold water.
No.
So I'm gonna stay cool, calm, and collected.
Your argument makes me mad because it's such bullshit. Like you're talking out both sides of your mouth.
That's how it is.
I feel like I'm arguing with Gene.
No, I'm not talking out both sides of my mouth. Cottrell, you are essentially the judge on this one.
I'll stay calm. I have two questions.
Would you rather have?
I have two questions for you.
Okay, I'll answer those two questions maybe.
What matters more, wins or losses?
Wins matter more.
Okay. How are you the 13th ranked team in the country if you have 2 losses and not just counting the losses and no ranked wins, and you have teams that are either fallen out of the rankings or not ranked like a Washington. USC wasn't ranked till this week. Illinois dropped out. When they have Illinois, again, has arguably the 2 best losses in the country, and they have wins over good Power 5 schools. So I would just like to know why you think that discrepancy is okay.
Rephrase that question. So you're saying
that's as calm as I can ask it.
I don't think I still don't think I understand your question now.
Okay, I would like to know why Illinois has the 2 best losses, arguably 2 best losses in the country, has wins over. Okay, but it's either that or Notre Dame, so I'll give you that. But they're 1-2. But then they have wins over Big Ten teams and have a good win on the road over a good Duke team. Notre Dame has none of that. Notre Dame is ranked 13th or whatever they are, and Illinois has completely fallen out of the rankings. I would just like you to explain the discrepancy.
Well, the discrepancy is that Illinois has no respect, obviously, from the committee, but that's not what we're arguing here. We're arguing here that Notre Dame, we're looking at Illinois and Notre Dame as we need to look at them as 2 separate entities. We can't compare apples to apples. We can't, because the schedules are not the same. The wins and losses are not the same. I'm saying brands individually, exactly. Brands do matter. We know that better than anybody. Right. But individually, if you look at Notre Dame's schedule and you see a loss to the current number 4 team and a loss to, well, Miami's obviously going to fall out of where they are now, but you look at, they have a loss to the number 2 and the number 4 team in the country. Those are 2 fantastic losses by a combination of 4 points. It's hard for me to say Notre Dame is a shitty football team who does not belong in the top 25. The top 5 teams.
You're not answering my question now.
I am, though, because I told you we can't look at them apples to apples. It's not a Notre Dame versus Illinois argument.
So I get what Alex is saying in the sense of it's not necessarily just looking at Illinois' schedule versus looking at Notre Dame's schedule. Like I get that point of it because another point that Alex made that I feel like kind of got, flown on the radar there is that preseason rankings matter. And I don't say that they matter in the sense of, oh, like this should count as a ranked win for you or not for you or whatever the case may be there. But like Notre Dame was a top 10 ranked team in the preseason, and Illinois, I'm almost positive, was unranked.
No,
so
Illinois
and I'm
was
not
like
saying
12th.
Illinois
was like 12th.
Yeah, they were 12th at the start.
Well, they were. Yeah, they were this season. They were, but they dropped to unranked after the loss to Indiana, and then they got ranked again and went before they played Ohio State. You're right. But regardless, though, I think my point is that I agree with you, Alex, that brands do matter. I guess my only question would be, though, is while Illinois is unranked and Washington are unranked, I feel like you disagree with that, Alex. Like, I feel like you think that both of those teams should probably be ranked. But
absolutely.
But you also think that Notre Dame is deserving of being where they're at because of how closely they played there. So I think we're almost all on the same side here. Alex just views Notre Dame a little bit higher regard there than what
I have to go to extreme in my arguments to get through a bill, and it's still not working. But that's okay. We'll get there eventually.
I got you, Alex. I see where your head's at. I don't necessarily agree with the Notre Dame part fully, but I can at least understand it.
Well, look, talking about Illinois, I do think talking about the recap of the game, I think that Illinois actually, if we're going back to Illinois-Ohio State game, I think Illinois came in actually with a really good game plan against Ohio State. Just Ohio State's defense just did not allow that run game to get started at all. And if you really look at the actual box score, how much did Illinois lose by? They lost by, 18 points?
Yep.
They allowed 21 points off of their 3 turnovers. So if Illinois could have just played a clean ball game and not turn the ball over, obviously turnovers happen, game's done and over with. Ohio State's defense forced those turnovers. But if Illinois could find a way to eliminate those turnovers in like a rematch situation, I think this game could be a 1-score game with Illinois' game plan going into this game. So, like I said, no fault to Illinois. Obviously, they scored the most points anybody scored on Ohio State this season. If I'm not mistaken, Control, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
That is a fact.
Yeah, so we said the offense had some success, especially through the air. They just couldn't get anything going on the ground. But I think that the game was a lot better played on Illinois' part than the score dictates. And that's why I do think Illinois still does not deserve to drop out of the top 25 for this loss. Because, yes, it's 18-point loss, but the game was a lot closer, I think, than the score actually anticipates.
I disagree wholeheartedly.
You may disagree. Like I said, those 3 turnovers were obviously the huge factor in 21 points crossing the end zone. But
for sure,
I do think that Illinois had a great game plan going into this. It's hard to beat the number 1 team in the country, and it is what it is. But I don't think that they deserve to fall out of their rankings completely for that loss. So, Bill, I do agree that Illinois should be ranked. I just had to go extreme with my argument to get the point across that we can't look at all these teams the same. But
it's fine. You're a classic Notre Dame fan. You're coming out now.
I'm not a Notre Dame fan. The only time I cheered for Notre Dame was when Rudy got put in the game.
He's all stuff.
And when they played Ohio State. Don't lie to me.
Oh yeah, that too. That was more out of spite than out of fandom. All right. Anyway, where are we going next? That one got off the rails real fast.
We'll go to the Red River rivalry because that kind of was a crap game. Texas, I think their defense played pretty well. Oklahoma was very out of sync. John Mateer coming back. He's definitely still a little banged up. I don't know if we're gonna get back into the whole argument from last week if we should play or not. I think everything spoke for itself here. But big win for Texas. Again, I think it's a little bit of fool's gold. They still do not impress me. I think offensively, they're a mess. I think they played Oklahoma at the right time, and I'll leave it there. I think if this game was 2 weeks later, I think Oklahoma easily beats them. But just like Notre Dame, Texas is a brand. So now we're going to have, all the hook 'em horns people are going to come flying back out of the woodwork saying, we're back. Put us in the top 10, put us in the playoff. They're not that good of a football team. Just being completely blunt and honest with you. If they get in, I think it would be a travesty because a good football team is probably going to be left out. But Oklahoma, I think defensively they played well most of the game. Couple missed assignments here and there led to Texas points, and the offense just wasn't there because Mateer was obviously rusty and definitely still banged up. So I still think Oklahoma is definitely the better football team. He's just got to get healthy, and then we got to see where all the chips lie.
Yeah, I mean, Oklahoma just could not get a running game going against Texas. So kudos to Texas and their defensive scheme to kind of really eliminate that run or that rushing attack of Oklahoma. They only had 30 carries for 48 yards. They also, the offensive line allowed 5 sacks. John Mateer obviously rushed his recovery time to get back for this game because he wanted to be there he wanted to be on the field with his guys. He didn't want his team to get a loss with him on the sideline doing, if he could do something to win. And unfortunately, Texas schemed up some coverages that ultimately led him to throwing 3 interceptions. Luckily, those 3 interceptions did turn into 0 points. Oklahoma's defense was absolutely locked down after those turnovers. But yeah, Texas, obviously Texas won 23-6. I like what Bill said, though. I think that if this game's played in a couple weeks from now or even a couple weeks ago before John Mateer's injury, I think that this is a whole different ball game. I'm still think that you play John, even with the result that happened, I still think you got to play your best here. And John Mateer's your best quarterback, so you got to put him in. I don't think this will hurt them too much when it's all said and done. Obviously, they have 5 ranked matchups coming up that will really determine the rest of Oklahoma's season there. But no, Texas needed this win, and they got it. They're back in their rankings. Obviously, you got a Texas brand bias. You also got the SEC bias behind it as well. So what are they now? What they're 2021, I believe it is. I just had the rankings up and I lost them. But yeah, I think John Mateer may have probably lost the Heisman race from this game. Obviously missing a week and then coming back and kind of laying an egg. This game, and obviously no touchdowns, 3 interceptions, terrible game on the ground, which I would say we talked about them probably not running him as much to kind of protect his hand. I think taking that part of his game away really kind of hurt the Oklahoma offense. trying to stay on script. I think Oklahoma is most successful when they're able to kind of go off script and kind of make things happen on the fly. So I think that him kind of staying in the pocket more really impacted their offensive success. But it is what it is. On to another week, and it'll be interesting to see if Oklahoma can kind of stay relevant. And like I say, if they can finish the 6-game stretch coming up with only one loss in that 6 games, I think Oklahoma's looking at a nice cushy spot in the college football playoff. But obviously, games got to be played first. So I'm cheering for Oklahoma the rest of the way. But this, I'm hopeful John Mateer's playing ability increases as he gets more comfortable with his hand.
Alex.
Oh,
doubling down on Mateer should have played this game is insanity.
Yep.
The fact that you just said it, like literally every reason you just said is the primary reason why he shouldn't have played. You still have 5 ranked matchups the rest of the way. Losing to Texas did not matter. You don't play Mateer in this game. Even if you lose to Texas, of course you want to win this game. You said it last week that you thought that Oklahoma was good enough to win this game without Mateer. So if that is the case, you go out there with the backup. Then right now they're on a bye this week. So you would have basically got an additional 2 weeks of rest for Mateer.
Oklahoma's not on a bye. They play South Carolina today. Their bye was the week before. Nah, they had Kent State bye.
Then they won
Oklahoma. Now they're playing South Carolina on the road today.
Then they have 5 ranked matchups. South Carolina stinks. But regardless, I did think they were on a bye this week. But still, that would have given him an extra week. And then you go against the South Carolina team who has been underwhelming so far. And I don't think that would have impacted as much. Like they dropped down to 14, and 14 is you're still in striking distance of the college football playoff. Like no doubt about that. But I don't know how you see that and say Mateer was ready, whether it be not even necessarily just the injury. Like I don't think the injury played necessarily a big part in that, but clearly Texas has a really good defense, and you knew they were going to get after the quarterback. And regardless of how good they've been looking offensively, because that's still a nightmare. But defensively, you knew they were going to get after you. So, like, I don't know. And in this game, I just truly feel like if he doesn't play, I'm looking at Oklahoma differently. Because now I feel like maybe Texas is given the blueprint about how to slow down this Oklahoma team, which is I don't think you necessarily have if Mateer doesn't play. And it's not that that's going to be the blueprint moving forward for every team. Because Mateer will get healthier as we keep going here, hopefully. But at least for the time being, like if I'm South Carolina, I would run my defense the exact same way that Texas did.
I hear what you're saying, but I also think that John Mateer is able to open. I think they're going to open up John Mateer more this week. Another week of prep. I think that he's going to feel more comfortable. I think he's going to be able to have more of the regular game plan that Oklahoma normally attacks with, which is, hey, we're going to call this passing play. If you don't see anything in the pocket starts to break down, take off. Like they weren't allowing him to do that against Texas. And obviously that resulted in, they said all 4 games he played previously, he only had 1 sack. Against Texas, he had 5. What was the difference? He wasn't making things happen when the pocket started to close in around him. He just kind of got sacked. He didn't look as mobile as he did the previous weeks. And again, I think that is by design to protect his hand, to protect him from getting injured in any other way. I still think, and I will always believe this, if your best is able to play, you put him out there. And like I said, he's never played in the Red River rivalry. He's probably been hearing as soon as he transferred to Oklahoma, he was hearing how big Oklahoma, Texas was, how big that Red River rivalry was. And there was no way in hell, and impossibly, because he could go pro after this year, and possibly his only opportunity to play and experience that atmosphere, there was nothing that's going to keep a gamer and a competitor out of that game. So I think you had to put him in there. You got to play with your best. Their backup beat Kent State 44-0 the week before. I can't remember his name right now off the top of my head. But passing wise, he was 14 for 24. He did not look crisp. I don't think that they had full confidence in the backup to start this game against Texas. You had to put your number 1 guy in there if he's ready to go. So even with the loss, I still defend that decision to put your best guys in so that you can have your best chance to win.
I would say if you're changing game plans and not running and not being athletic because you're afraid of re-injuring your hand, then he wasn't 100% ready to go. I agree with you. When push comes to shove, you play your best you can. I think him going out there at 60%, I think was a detriment to the team. I think he was hesitant to do certain things because he didn't want to get hit on his hand. He didn't run the ball as well. And I think as soon as Texas saw that, they were like, we're going to run away and we're going to make him throw the ball. And he didn't throw the ball well. So his hand was all taped up. I think they're on the side of caution and ended up with the same result and would have risked or had him get even banged up even more than he did from this game. So I guess we'll see going forward.
Hindsight is always 20/20.
But we set this on the show last Saturday.
Yeah, it's not hindsight.
This would be the case. Like me and Bill both picked Texas because the defensive line was really good and they were going to get after Mateer and make him uncomfortable. Like that was the whole reason that we picked Texas.
Yeah, well, I picked Oklahoma and I was wrong. So it happens.
We knew why you were gonna Mateer for Heisman. Like we knew you were gonna stick with Oklahoma until the wheels fall off.
Now we're back to Avery Johnson for Heisman, baby. Let's go.
God, I thought he's in the ground.
He is.
Kansas State is, but Colorado didn't make the college football playoff last year, and you all know who won the Heisman last year.
Well,
I know I'm not comparing Avery Johnson
playing safety, so
that's true. All right, where are we going next? I've had enough.
Yeah, maybe Avery
Coles over Illinois and John Mateer.
Maybe Avery Johnson can start catching his own interceptions and running them back on the other side.
That'd be impressive. That'd be impressive. Okay, where are we going next, Bill?
Top right, we're going down to Mizzou. Alabama came to town. A lot of people thought maybe this is the slip-up game, but the old revenge tour kept moving on. So Alabama 27, Missouri 24. Really good football game. Mizzou had the ball. Bo had the ball in his hands, driving down the field with time to go, and threw. Was it his third interception of the game?
Second interception.
Second interception in the game. Alabama comes out of Mizzou with another ranked win. I think things you could take away from here. I think again, I'll echo what I said last week about Alabama. I think you have to give Kellen DeBoer some credit. It seemed like the walls were falling down and closing in down in Tuscaloosa after that loss. And now, again, they're 3 or 4 ranked wins in a row now. They've shown no lapse of concentration. Done it both home, on the road. And on top of that, I think you got to recognize Missouri is a pretty good football team. They hung in there with them. Like I said, they had a chance to win the game. Had the ball, in the offensive hands, driving down the field, with 2 minutes to go. Bo just tried to kind of sneak a seam pass in and overthrew it, and that was kind of that. But Missouri's legit. I don't know how they end up factoring in down the road or down the finish here in the SEC. I think their schedule is kind of favorable compared to a lot of the other teams. They could still sneak in. We'll see. I think it's going to be tough for them, but Alabama's just. I feel like they found another level, another gear, and that locker room kind of came together, and they're playing pretty good football. Ty Simpson, another great week. I believe he's the Heisman leader now, odds wise anyway. I don't know if he ends up winning it. I slightly disagree with Alex that John Mateer is out of it. I think if he plays well the rest of the way, I think he almost gets somewhat of a mulligan for last week, coming back early. But we'll see. But another big win for Alabama. They move on. And again, I think Missouri showed enough for them to get stay credible, and people believe they have an outside chance to get in.
Yeah, I mean, 3 things kind of really made a difference in this game for me. Obviously, I thought it was a fantastic game. Missouri just could not convert a third down. They were 1 for 11 on third down. Missouri had 2 turnovers. Bama had none. And Alabama had the ball for almost 40 minutes of this game. Complete domination of controlling the clock. I think those 3 things really factored into the decision of this game. Obviously, watching that last drive, I thought Bo Pabula had a chance to lead his team down. They were almost at midfield when he threw that interception, driving for at least field goal range. At very least, I thought that they would at least get a field goal attempt in to close the game out, to either send it to overtime and tie the game. But no, Bill, you did say, like I said, Missouri, great team. I still love them. Bo Prabula is a leader of that team. He played fantastic. He had 2 interceptions, one of them at the end of the game, trying to make something happen that necessarily didn't. He made a throw he didn't necessarily need to make yet when he threw that interception. But they got Auburn today. They got Vanderbilt, Missouri. They got Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, and Arkansas left. So I think two of the 5 last games are ranked, with Vanderbilt and A&M being ranked. Oh yeah, and Oklahoma. So 3 of them are ranked games. I think it's a tough stretch for Missouri, especially in the SEC. But I think that with the way they played against Alabama, I don't see them getting blown out in any of those games and having a chance to win all of them. So I'm still impressed with Missouri. Alabama played well. Ty Simpson played well. Like I said, I'll be apologizing for my Ty Simpson critiques from the beginning of the year, the rest of the year, if I have to, because I was saying that he was trash, and he is not trash so much. So there's that. But yeah, I think like I said, 3 things really determine this game: turnovers, third down conversions, and time of possession controlled by Alabama. So Alabama's back to playing Alabama football, or at least the new version of Alabama football. And I'm curious to see how the SEC will turn out and who ends up in that SEC championship game.
I'm just ready, and I'm not even – this isn't even a dig at Missouri specifically here. I'm just ready for whenever these teams start to fall down the rankings. Like Missouri falling 2 slots after losing to Bama at home. And yes, it was a close game, but they didn't necessarily look good while doing it. Like 2 turnovers made it look sloppy. Alex, you mentioned the 1 for 11 on third down. Like it always felt like Bama had control of this game, even with it being as close of a game as it was. Vanderbilt had to lose to Alabama earlier, and they're at 17 or wherever. Like I'm just at the point now where I'm so tired of seeing these SEC teams beat up on each other and then just kind of stay in that same range moving forward there, because Alabama's loss this season is to Florida State. And you may say that was a turning point and they got it all figured out and things like that. But Florida State has dropped 3 in a row. And that's what you were talking about earlier, Alex, with Norvell's seat getting a little warmer as we continue to go here. So, yes, Alabama looked good in the game. And I don't necessarily think that this is the same team that we saw at the end of August there during week 1. But at the same time, like I truly don't, I feel like I don't know how good these teams are because they just keep handing each other, losses when they play each other. But as a whole, with this game, like I said, Bama looked like the better team. Bo Prabula finally seemingly came back down to earth with the couple turnovers there, especially the one late that you guys both had mentioned there. I thought Missouri would have I thought I picked Missouri to win. So I obviously thought that with them being able to run the ball, they would control a little bit better of the time of possession there. But give credit to Alabama, holding the ball when they absolutely needed to.
All righty. Last but not least, game of the week. Speaking of coming back down to earth a little bit, Indiana Hoosiers going to Autzen and handle the Ducks of Oregon. Their first loss of the season, 30-20. Another really, really, really good football game. If you watched it, this was a high-quality football game. Lots of plays on both sides. I think both defenses look great for spurts of the game, like dominating for spurts of the game. And you had a couple Dante Moore miscues at the end. First slip-ups of the year for him. Ended up costing Indiana. Indiana took advantage of everything Oregon gave them, and I got to give Cincinnati and his coaching staff credit. I thought their play calling down the stretch was incredible. I think they really kept Oregon off balance the last, I'd say, quarter of the game when it mattered, and then defensively, like I said, they forced Oregon into 2 turnovers late, which really sealed the deal. So. Hats off to Indiana. I think Indiana. You guys played them this year, Cottrell?
No, sir.
Wow. So I mean, That's actually a tough loss for Oregon then, because I mean Oregon's on the outside looking at for the Big Ten championship game. But it looks as of right now, we're looking for Indiana, Ohio State. But a lot of football to be played. We'll see what happens. I'll be honest. I came out of this still thinking Oregon is really, really, really good, and Indiana this year is absolutely legit. I think that gives the Big Ten 3 absolute bona fide teams that could win the national championship this year. I still think all 3 can. Once we get into the playoff, Indiana is a really solid football team, though, and I think that's what it was going to take to go into Austin and win, and that's what they did. So, don't really think any less of Oregon. I just think even more highly of Indiana.
And we're going to definitely save Alex for the caboose here. But for me, I think the biggest thing that I was kind of surprised about is Oregon is young in the RB room. And I know they like to play their freshmen, but the fact that they really didn't establish a run game against Indiana was a little surprising to me. I thought that Oregon has the better athletes in this one. So even if it wasn't necessarily just brute strength going up the middle, going at them, things like that, I thought they would have advantages to take on the outside there with their running backs, getting them out in space. But ultimately, that didn't really happen too much. Oregon only had, I believe, 80-something yards rushing in that one, which puts more pressure on Adante Moore, who, to his credit, I think he's built for it. But I also think it makes defending that Oregon team a bit easier there. Give credit to Dan Lanning for in the second half. He definitely made adjustments. They right away, first half, they did a poor job of getting the ball to their playmakers. Second half, Sadiq and DeCorian Moore, you could tell were a big time focus at halftime, and they made sure to try and get the ball out in their hands. But on the flip side of it, man, Indiana was a team that was not afraid of the moment and being in Oregon, and they had 2 guys that really stepped up every single time they needed them, and that was their running back, and I believe it's Barner, and then their receiver, what is the kid's name? Gotta look it up now. The receiver, Elijah Surratt. Like, those were the 2, Roman Hemby and Elijah Surratt. Like, those were the 2 that were absolutely there when Indiana needed them, whether it was Hemby on third downs, like picking up first downs, or Surratt. It felt like every time Indiana needed to get the ball to the sticks, he was their guy. He was making guys miss. And it was, impressive to see there. And then, of course, Indiana's defense getting the turnovers late to really seal the deal here. So give Indiana a ton of credit there. I think for Oregon, this is one of those games where you don't necessarily want to see have like moral victories, but I think Oregon has stuff they can look at this game and say, hey, we can make sure this doesn't happen later in the season to really improve from it and still keep them in the mix for competing for a national championship.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at the game, it's really weird because you kind of nailed it right in the head, Cottrell, is you don't understand like how they didn't really establish a good rushing attack against Indiana. It honestly, if I'm comparing anything here, it honestly probably felt for me how last year's Ohio State-Oregon regular season game felt for you, Cottrell, where like Ohio State wasn't doing things the way that they normally do things against Oregon in that game, and that led to the loss that you were kind of like confused about. That's how I felt in this Oregon versus Indiana game. It almost felt like Dan Lanning was like holding plays and holding situational football back. It's almost like he wasn't showing all of his cards, which felt weird to me because we just played Penn State a couple weeks ago. He emptied the bag to get that win against Penn State. But it felt like against Indiana, he wasn't being as aggressive with his play calls. Yes, he was still going for it on fourth down in Dan Lanning fashion. But like the play calling was just really interesting to me. I felt like they should have gotten obviously a lot more rushing attack. Can't even talk today. I feel like they should have ran the ball a lot more. They only had, 30 rushing attacks, or 30 rushing attempts, not attacks. And and Dante Moore threw the ball 34 times, which is the second most this season. He threw 40 times against Penn State. Offensive line allowed 5 sacks. I mean, 3 for 14 on third down. We've been converting at 50% on third down all season. O-line gave 6 sacks, not 5. Like I said, I still feel like Oregon is – if they played this game 10 times, I feel like Oregon wins 7 out of 10. I just don't feel like Oregon came with their best game plan. And Dan Lanning said it best yesterday in a press conference when a guy was trying to talk about the Indiana game. He's like, we played that game last Saturday. We're focused on Rutgers now. And that's exactly what as an Oregon fan, you have to do is go to the next game. You're still a top 10 ranked team. You still have a bunch of tough games on schedule up ahead. You still control your own destiny going to the college football playoff. So take this loss, take it as a grain of salt, use it to get better, use it to get more intensity in practice, use it to get a better game plan across, and move on from it. But yeah, Indiana played fantastic. Dan Lanning said it best. That's a really good football team. Signetti was not scared of the moment. The Autzen crowd was really rocking against Indiana, causing false starts the entire game. Indiana was still kind of able to overcome that. And Cottrell, you called out the player of the game. It wasn't Fernando Mendoza or Roman Hemby. It was Elijah Surratt. Every single time Indiana needed a play, they said, screw it, Surratt down there somewhere, and that dude came up with every single catch. The dude is fantastic. 8 catches, 121 yards, 1 touchdown. It is what it is. I can kind of come up with excuses all day as to why Oregon won. Point of the matter is, or why Oregon lost. Point of the matter is they lost. And I think if a rematch happened again later in the season, I'm picking Oregon.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't think you can make excuses per se. It's like you said. There's certain things they do well and execute well, and when you're playing an elite team like that, it's stands out more, and little things like that can cost you the game. Again, I'd love to watch this game again. If it's in the playoff on a neutral field, I think it's a great game. Again, I said it, in the preview. I don't think anything less of Oregon. I think Oregon's very capable of winning the national championship. I just think Indiana is another absolute bona fide option from the Big Ten now. And I think the Big Ten has 3 of the strongest cases in those 3 teams for this year. I think all 3 are capable of winning the Big Ten, and obviously the national championship. So it's gonna be fun to watch the Big Ten come down the stretch as well. It's like I said. I think this game hurts Oregon a little bit. I swore Indiana and Ohio State played each other, but I guess they don't. So we'll see.
Alex, I like how you threw in the Ohio State game from last year as a little, just trying to make yourself feel better, because that's actually not at all how I felt. Now, I did feel that way about the Ohio State-Michigan game, but the Ohio State-Oregon game, I just felt like we had some self-inflicted wounds. Like, you guys got us with the onside kick early there. Like, that's something that couldn't happen.
Swag.
Still should have. I mean, I hated the OPI call too, but whatever. And then Will Howard ends the game with the slide, and we go on from there. But I definitely would have felt much different though if you guys would have came to Columbus and beat us by 10. I definitely would have felt much different about the game though.
Yeah, when Dante Moore missed a lot of open stuff down the field. The one time he actually went deep to Malik Benson was a 44-yard touchdown pass. They were showing they were showing replays in between plays where he was missing a couple guys that were wide open down the field.
He missed the touchdown for sure.
Yeah, that guy was like, like he could have. I can't explain it, but there was a couple situations where I think the Indiana's pressure really forced Dante Moore out of his rhythm, and it's very apparent, especially like I said, missing a couple deep balls, not even throwing, which not even seeing them open. So like Indy said, kudos to Indiana's defense. Oregon's offense got to be better. I guarantee today against Rutgers that we're going to see them spread the ball around. I guarantee we're going to see a lot of deep attacks in the passing game today to kind of right the ship and get Dante Moore's confidence. Not that his confidence is wavering, but to get him back in the rhythm of a good deep ball. So I'm expecting to see that against Rutgers today. So, but I think all we have left is previews.
No grill this week. We got, a lot of people who were on the grill got fired. So James Franklin being the head guy. Then we got 5 games this week, gents. 5 ranked matchups. Like this is a slate. And the thing is that none of our teams are on here. So we're going to watch our team, and then we get 5 additional games that we're going to be excited about. So I'm definitely looking forward to this slate here.
Yeah, it's definitely a good one. I was worried it was going to be all SEC previews this week. I was happy that the Holy War and Notre Dame USC was going on too. Bill, where we starting this preview fest?
We'll stop top left corner. We're going to go down to Nashville, Tennessee. We're going to go to LSU at Vanderbilt. Number 10 versus number 17. Vandy coming off that loss 2 weeks ago, part of Alabama's revenge tour. And LSU still, I guess, sitting there at number 10 after their first loss of the year. Haven't looked good in a couple weeks. They were in that proverbial, as Cottrell likes to call it, begging to get beat category, and they finally did. Very curious to see how they rebound. Curious to see how Vanderbilt rebounds and how they look today. This is a big game for both because whoever loses this game has 2 losses, and they're kind of sitting on that teeter-totter of got to be perfect for the rest of the year. This would be a huge win for Vanderbilt. It will be an upset. They will storm the field if they win. LSU, can Brian Kelly get it together and get Nussmeier going again and have his team look like they did the first 2 weeks of the season, where all of a sudden we thought, we were kind of on the wrong side of LSU, and maybe they were a lot better than we thought they were. And now the last 4 weeks they've played kind of like what we thought they were. So a very interesting game to start off the slate this week. Whoever wants to go first can hop in here.
Well, I got a question here. Kickoff, obviously, for this game is in a half hour. All right, LSU Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is a 1.5 point favorite in this game. This is the first time I think Vanderbilt's ever been ranked or ever been a favorite against a ranked opponent.
Yep.
Obviously, they're at home. Do we think Vanderbilt storms the field, winning as a favorite?
Absolutely. I talked about this on Wire to Wire on Wednesday. When you beat LSU is a top, they're in that category, top 12 team of programs in the country. When you beat that kind of team, and even I don't care, this is the first time they've ever been ranked as a favorite. If you beat a top 10 team in your Vanderbilt, this is prime storm the field kind of game. Like, I don't care that you're the favorite here. You're looking at the rankings. You beat number 10 in the country. You're Vanderbilt. You don't get this opportunity much. Like, you want to lean into this opportunity as much as you can while Eli is still coaching there. So they win this football game. They absolutely storm the field. They take the goalpost back down Broadway, and they do all the fun
Dump in the river, baby.
But with that said, though, I'll just go quick here because I did talk about this game on Wednesday. I love Vanderbilt in this one. Like, to me, this game screams Brian Kelly blunder. And with that said, like, Vandy's at home. We know how well they play at home. I like Diego to take care of business. I think Vanderbilt will be able to run the ball. Whit Weeks is out, the leader of that LSU defense. I think that's a big blow for them. So I like Vanderbilt at home to win this football game.
See, when I look at this game, maybe I'm stuck with blinders on, looking at the LSU from the old days and looking at the Vanderbilt from early 2000s and how terrible that team was. I see a 5-1 Vanderbilt team, and my brain still yells out fluke. I'm still waiting for the real Vanderbilt to kind of come out from behind the curtain and start being Vanderbilt again. Yes, they're at home. Yes, they're favorites. Dave Portnoy put a $200,000 bet on Vanderbilt to cover the 1.5 point spread today against LSU. And you guys I know. And you guys keep talking about how this is a Brian Kelly game waiting to happen. Here's the thing, I just think LSU has too much talent on the defensive side of the ball. Diego Pavia looked absolutely shell-shocked when he played Alabama a couple weeks ago. Was that last week? That was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, Thank you. Sorry, my brain's all fuzzy. He looked absolutely shell-shocked in that 30-14 loss. Yes, it was on the road to Alabama. Yes, it was also Alabama. But LSU is also a top 10 team and has the capability of absolutely putting this Vanderbilt team away. And I think that this isn't even – I think the 1.5 point spread for Vanderbilt's favor is an absolute slap in the face to LSU. I think LSU takes care of business in this game. by 2 touchdowns. I think this is a 14-point LSU win, even on the road at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt kind of comes back down to earth. Diego Pavia, he leads the team in passing, obviously, but he also leads the team in rushing, which tells me if you're able to eliminate his legs from the game plan, you kind of turn Vanderbilt into a one-dimensional team, and a one-dimensional team is easy to beat. So I think the LSU finds a way to eliminate Diego Pavia today, and LSU takes care of business by at least 14.
Sheesh. I'm like somewhere in the middle between both of you. Alex, I totally feel like this is just like, Vanderbilt got off to a good start. They're going to finish the year the rest of the way like we expect Vanderbilt always to do. But that being said, I don't think Pavia played great against Alabama, but they hung in that game too. On the other side of it, though, I feel like LSU should be better, but I also feel like this could be the Brian Kelly blunder game. I really want to pick Vanderbilt. I said this on Wednesday. There's just something in my gut that is just telling me LSU is going to pull this game somehow. Have it be a bad call, just something fluky. I would love Vanderbilt to win. I would love to see Brian Kelly be all pissed off, get all red in the face. I would all of it. I would love to see all of it. Him inevitably throw one of his players under the bus at the press conference. And I would love to see the goalpost go down Broadway again. I thought that was one of the coolest things that happened in college football a couple years ago. But that being said, I'm not going to pick it. Just going strictly with the gut here. I think LSU pulls this game out somehow, and they win by a couple points. So I'm going with LSU, unfortunately.
And I'm going to say as a bonus little prop bet, this may be Garrett Nussmeier has not looked like the Garrett Nussmeier that we've seen in the past. I think this could be the Garrett Nussmeier get-right game where he finally throws for over 300 yards in the 2025 season. This could be the game where he kind of announces himself as back. So look for Garrett Nussmeier to have a huge game against Vanderbilt's defense.
So you kind of think Vanderbilt stinks?
I don't think Vanderbilt stinks. I just think that Alabama showed us who they really are.
Okay, fair.
And LSU has the pedigree to do the same thing. Look at me, pedigree. Look at you using big words.
Big words. Well, speaking of Alabama, we'll give Alex the segue points for this episode. We'll go down to Tuscaloosa, top right, another SEC matchup. Alabama hosts Tennessee. Can Alabama make it 5 in a row? 5 in a row, ranked opponents. Tennessee coming down, Josh Heupel. I think this has the ability to be game of the week. I think it's going to be a very good game. I think Tennessee is with Aguilar and all those guys. I think they'll show up. I think Alabama will probably play a lot of bend, not fully break defense. But I also think Ty Simpson's going to have a good day against that Tennessee defense. I think he makes enough plays to get it done. I think he leaves this game as a Heisman favorite still. I think Alabama makes it 5 in a row. I like Alabama at home against Tennessee. And they'll probably be ranked in the top 3 or 4 this weekend, depending on what happens. So I like Alabama to win at home.
I'll go quick here. I like Bama too. I think that this is a matchup, though, that will be tight. I think people are selling short what Joey Aguilar and that Volunteers offense can do. Bama has looked better, obviously, since the Florida State loss. But the one piece of Bama's defense that still hasn't looked the greatest is in the secondary. I think their DBs are going to be in for a rude awakening when they have Chris Brazzell II on the other side of them, and the connection that he has with Aguilar. So I think this will be a really tight game here. But ultimately, I just think Ty Simpson and that offense with Bernard and Jam and Ryan Williams, I think it's going to be too much. But I like this game being a shootout. I could easily see it being a 35-31, 38-34 kind of game where Bama just has enough offensively to get it done. But I like Bama to win the football game. Before
Alice goes real quick, I think you mentioned, I think that the craziest thing about the thing is they've won 4 in a row against 4 ranked opponents. And you mentioned arguably their best player's name, who really hasn't gotten going at all this season, in Ryan Williams. I think that changes today. I agree with you. I think it's a higher scoring game. I think this is kind of a classic SEC, shoot 'em out type game. I think Ryan Williams has a big game today for Alabama. I think this is, there he is type game. And he's back. So, but Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, man. Well, I think that the over is by far the best bet to take in this game. It's 58.5 right now. I think both teams score over 30. Here's my issue. Alabama obviously has been playing great football, especially recently beating Missouri, Vanderbilt, and Georgia, 3 ranked teams back to back to back. And Tennessee, on the other hand, has been playing a lot of close games that I feel like should not have been close games. For example, against Arkansas at home last week, a 3-point win. Mississippi State, it took them to overtime to beat them. And then obviously that loss to Georgia also in overtime. I just feel like Tennessee tends to not play the most efficient ball against SEC opponents. And Alabama right now is just absolutely rolling. And I really like I said, I'm no longer against Ty Simpson. I think Ty Simpson may be the cream of the crop in the SEC as far as quarterbacks go. I love what Joey Aguilar brings to the table. Obviously, what's his name? Brazel the second. He's absolutely a fantastic receiver. 536 yards, already 7 touchdowns on the season. I expect him to have a big day. I expect Aguilar to have a big day. I do think this game comes down to the fourth quarter. I don't think Alabama covers the 8.5-point spread that they currently hold. I think that Tennessee keeps this game close. I think it's like a 49-45 type game where Alabama pulls it out. I think, honestly, if this game was in Tennessee, I'd probably be picking Tennessee. That's how close this game is going to be for me as far as when I compare them. But Alabama, I think that home field advantage really pays off. I think they get a 4-point win today.
We're on the same page, Alex. I like that.
All right. Let's go all the way down to the bottom. We'll do the holy war. We will go Utah at BYU. I would say this. I would say the beginning of the season with what we knew Utah was definitely losing, and then obviously with BYU losing Retzlaff right before the season, shocked both these teams are ranked. It's going to make this game very interesting today. 23 ranked Utah Utes go in, play BYU Cougars, number 15, who have looked surprisingly like they haven't missed a beat since their quarterback got thrown out of school for having sex. Very interesting development down there in BYU. But how do you guys see this game going? I think this is going to be a very good kind of under the radar football game.
I tell you what, man, Bear Bachmeier, dude is absolutely legit. I'm not saying that he brings to the table what was his name? I'm blanking his name.
Jake
Retzlaff. Thank you for Tulane. Yeah. He doesn't bring to the table what Retzlaff does as far as swag and all that stuff. But the dude's a gamer. Dude, like the last week, had 22 carries, 89 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Like has had 2 games now where he's almost hit 100 yards rushing, which is a part of his game I did not see really being utilized as a true freshman. Like I said, he's making smart decisions. Unfortunately, last week in the 2 overtime win against Arizona, he did throw 2 interceptions, but he only has 3 so far on the season. Utah, on the other hand, as far as their quarterback play goes, I love Devin Dampier. If it's Dampier or Dampier, either way, I love his quarterback play. However, we saw what happens when you eliminate his legs and force him to throw and force him to be strictly a throwing quarterback. That's what Texas Tech did a few weeks back when they were able to beat them 34-10 at Utah, which we all know going to Utah is a tough place to play, and they absolutely destroyed them by 3 scores. So I really like BYU in this situation. I think that BYU's defense has really stepped up this year, especially like I said, holding ASU to only 10 points. Oh, sorry. I'm looking at the wrong team schedule. Sorry, I lost my spot here. All right, so like last week, the double overtime win against Arizona, 33-27. BYU's defense really stepped up at the end of the game when they needed to. I know a force to stop, obviously, in overtime. And Utah, if you can eliminate Devin Dampier's legs, like I said, force him to be a throwing quarterback, make them one-dimensional. That offense looks completely different. I think BYU has the game plan. BYU is going to continue their role. They're fantastically coached. I think BYU wins this game at home and covers that 3.5. Obviously, 3.5 point underdogs to Utah. But I think BYU wins this outright.
I got Utah in this football game, and I think it's going to be defense. Defense is going to absolutely matter in this one. I think you make a good point about Devin Dampier and, his ability to use his legs. And I also think, though, that game against Texas Tech was kind of an anomaly because I think Texas Tech is one of the, regardless of where they're ranked, I think they've played like a top 6 team in the country this year on both sides of the ball there. So I do think that's going to be a little bit of an outlier there. However, on the flip side of it with BYU, I don't think they've seen a defense as good as Utah yet. And that I think that is saying something. Like, while Utah doesn't have like a top 10 defense or anything like that, I do think Utah has a unit that can be in the top 25 or will be in the top 25 when it's all said and done. So I think that is going to be important for them. And I think it being a true test for a true freshman quarterback. So I like Utah to keep this game lower scoring. When they've had the tight games, I mean, obviously the double OT game, they had a game earlier in the year against Colorado that was pretty tight. They found a way to win it. I think if you put yourself in a one-score football game against this Utah team, I think they have all the faith in the world their defense can get a stop. So I like Utah in a tight one, lower scoring game. I could see like a 21-17, 20-13, like lower scoring game where I think Utah takes care of business.
I'm gonna go with Alex on this one. I'm gonna go with the Cougars. I agree with you. I think it's gonna be a lower scoring game. I think both defenses will show up and play well. Holy War is always interesting. It's kind of one of those games that something crazy happens at the game a lot of times, and it just gets, I don't want to say gets swept under the rug. It just doesn't get the publicity that it does, like if it happens some other places. But there's been some very contentious battles between these two teams over the last decade or so. A lot of stuff's happened in the stands. These two schools hate each other. It's kind of one of I think it's a rivalry that's a little bit underrated. That being said, BYU at home, I think, does enough against that Utah defense that Cottrell just spoke about. I think this is like a 2017 type game. I do agree with Cottrell. I think it's a very defensive game. I don't think this is going to be one where it's going to be a lot of, up and down the field and a lot of flashy offense. It's going to be kind of a grinded out type, grimy, old type school football game. So I will be peeking in on this later tonight for sure and watching it. I think it's going to be fun. But I like BYU to take care of business at home. Next, I guess we'll go over to South Bend, Indiana. USC comes to town. Ranked number, what are they, 20th, whatever. At Notre Dame, ranked number 13th. I guess this game will give validity to Notre Dame being ranked, according to some people. We'll see. Spread jumped to 10.5, which I think is kind of interesting. This game for me will boil down to whoever defense decides to show up and play somewhat good. I think both offenses want to run the ball first. USC ran the ball really effective against Michigan last week. Had a ton of missed tackles, but they made him pay for every single one of them. I'd have to look at USC's running back room. We talked about this on Wednesday night. I don't know who's playing, who's dressed, who might get dressed at halftime. We'll have to figure that out.
Hey, $1,000 fine, bro.
Bro, it's the biggest joke in the world. But obviously everything Notre Dame wise is going to run through Jeremiah Love, probably the best running back in the country. I do think USC's defense or offense is going to be able to test Notre Dame's defense in this game, though. I am not a believer that Notre Dame's defense has magically figured it out. They're still giving up a ton of points to teams they shouldn't be giving up points to. I think USC's game plan is going to be very similar to what they did against Michigan. I think they're going to run the ball, and I think there's not going to be any 5 or 7 step drops. Throwing, I think they're going to get the ball out really quick and just let their kids make plays in space. And I think that's doomsday for Notre Dame in regards to that defense and how they've played all year. I'll say Notre Dame gets the win at home. I don't think they cover, though. I think 10.5 is nuts for as bad as that defense has played this year. So we'll see how it plays out. But I like Notre Dame to win, but I like USC to cover.
Joe?
Yeah, so for me, I'm of the same idea as Bill here. I like USC to cover, but I think I'm leaning Notre Dame to win. I think Jordan Maeva is going to have his success throughout the air. Mekhi Lemon's going to have success against that Notre Dame secondary. I think, though, the biggest detriment, though, is going to be Notre Dame's defense. While they still haven't figured it out, they're still a better unit than what USC has. So I think for me, I could easily see this one being a higher scoring game. I don't know what the over under is set at, but I would imagine that this is going to be pushing the over unless they put it up there
59
pretty high. What is it?
59.5.
See, I think we're probably right there, a 30-27, 31-28 kind of football game where we get like right to that. So I like USC to keep it real tight, but honestly, I think Notre Dame's gonna get the win.
Yeah, the 10.5 point spread is really interesting to me. Because like I said, USC's offense has not scored less than 30 points all year. Notre Dame's defense really looks shaky, especially against teams that can throw the ball. So this is going to be I think it's going to be a great game to watch. I think it's going to come down to the wire. For Notre Dame to win this game, they're going to have to do what no defense has done yet this season and hold USC to under 30 points. If USC is able to go out there and do what they want to do, Jordan Maeva is able to kind of pick apart that secondary of Notre Dame that's been a little bit iffy, a suspect, as we would say so far this season. I really like USC to cover. I even like, again, I was arguing Notre Dame ranking earlier, but that's just for argument's sake. In this game, I really like USC. I think they're coming into this game a 5-1 record. I think that their confidence is at an all-time high right now after beating Michigan last week. I think USC actually walks in to Notre Dame and takes care of business. I think that 10.5 point spread is an absolute, again, I've used this phrase a couple times today, slap in the face to that USC program and what they've been able to show this year. Notre Dame's defense leaves a lot more questions than answers. And if they don't dedicate their offense to giving Jeremiah Love the ball, which they've shown in the past and in this season that they can stray away from him, I think that USC can definitely pull out this win. So USC covers. I'm even going to go as far as say USC wins this game outright.
I don't think it's crazy, Alex. I don't think it's crazy. I don't know. I got to trust the defense. And if USC's defense comes up and says, hey, we're going to get the stop, then I 100% think you're going to be right there. So I respect. 10.5 dog outright. Respect.
All right. It says games of the week. Alex, maybe credit. This graphic is very nice.
Thank you.
Or did Control make it? Alex made it?
No, it's Alex.
But I think the game in the middle is the game of the week, if in my opinion anyway. Ole Miss, number 5, traveling down to Athens, take on the Georgia Bulldogs, number 9. I think Ole Miss is probably a little overranked, but I guess we'll see today. I mean, they're going to earn it today. Georgia, still a little bit of an enigma to me. I think they've looked like a typical Georgia team for a quarter or halves at a time and look really good. And then other times they look sloppy, they look disinterested, a little bit soft. You got the whole Kirby versus Lane Kiffin thing. Obviously, I think Kirby's a way better coach, but Lane's had a really good year so far. So this is a really intriguing game. I think Georgia is by far the best team that Ole Miss has played this year. But I don't know which Georgia we're getting. Or, are we getting the efficient Gunnar Stockton or the one that kind of, is all over the place? I think you'll know a lot really quick in this game. I'll say that. But other than Alabama, winning at Georgia is really hard. Really hard, especially since Kirby's been there. I don't think Lane goes in and does it today. I think Georgia wins. I think we'll spread on this like 7.5, something like that.
Yep. 7.5 for Georgia. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a lot. They haven't been rock solid or consistent enough for me to really believe in that. I think they win, but I think it's probably like a field goal. I don't like the 7.5 at all. I actually think that's probably disrespectful to Ole Miss and giving Georgia too much credit.
Hey, look, I picked against Ole Miss a couple weeks ago in the LSU game. I also agree that I don't know who this LSU team was. They hadn't played anybody. Their schedule had been filled with Arkansas and Kentucky and Tulane, and they took care of business against those guys. And then the LSU game came down to LSU game, 24-19 victory. I had to see them win a close game to believe that they could do it. I love what I saw out of that game. And then they wanted to show me again last week that they could win a close game. I just didn't think it would be against Washington State of all teams. What was the spread of that game? I think it was like 34 points or something like that, and ended up being a 3-point win against Washington State. I never doubted that they were going to win that game. However, it was, if you were an Ole Miss fan, you were nervous the entire time. And what it comes down to is that Washington State was able to find a way to and this seems to be the common theme against these really good college football teams that find ways to lose, is that teams eliminate the mobility of their QB. And Washington State last week found a way to eliminate Trinidad Chambliss's his legs as far as his rushing ability. They held him to 11 carries for only 15 yards and 1 touchdown. They did a fantastic job of eliminating that part of Ole Miss's game plan. I don't think that that's going to happen today. I think that Washington State maybe have put in a blueprint of how to kind of beat that Ole Miss rushing attack. But I think that today Trinidad Chambliss is going to beat them with his arm. This guy has thrown for over 300 yards in every single game he started except for his game last week. I think that game against LSU is going to be vindicative of how this game goes as well. I think this is going to be a close game. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. But I am not going to pick against Ole Miss again this season until they show me that they can lose, that they are not who I think they are. I got Ole Miss winning this game, covering the spread, taking care of business on the road. I think it's a very similar score, 24-18, 24-21. I think this is a one-possession game down to the wire, and I think Ole Miss pulls it out today for the game of the week.
Well, you have clearly not been a fan of Lane Kiffin long enough, because he will show you that letdown will rear its ugly head. So, with that being said, Ole Miss is the better football team here, guys. I think quarterback play, Trinidad Chambliss is showing you that he can be an X factor. I think defensively, Ole Miss has shown you as a whole that their defense means business this year. I think they have the playmakers as well on offense, maybe not better than Georgia. I do like Georgia's playmakers more, and Zachariah Branch and Cash and Noah Thomas. I do like the weapons that Georgia has. But with that said, going into Athens is no walk in the park, and I think that spread is as high as it is because of what we know Lane does in these kinds of matchups. And again, I don't think this game's necessarily going to be all on Lane, but I do think Kirby is going to have his group going. They already have a loss this year against Bama. And I think that's going to go a long way for them. Georgia does struggle just like Alabama does in the secondary. They have talent there. They have corners that are really good, but they aren't consistent. And I do think they're going to get handsy, and I think the big play will be there for Ole Miss. But ultimately, though, I think dogs got to eat. I like Georgia. I don't know if they cover the spread, but I think it's pretty close. They're close to covering it, whether it just be a touchdown game or a 10-point game. I don't think Georgia's ever in really fear of losing this one per se. But I do think Ole Miss will make sure that this is a very entertaining game.
Okay. Well, I think that's it for previews, Bill. I think all we got now is the Mountain pick 'em, and then we got kickoff in a minute. Yeah,
Yep.
kickoff in a minute. Well, let's head to the mountain. All right.
Oh, look at those tombstones.
Yep, we got 3 tombstones on the mountain this week. The Eliminator Mountain has claimed 2 more victims in Penn State and Florida State as well. We got a couple new teams at base camp. Obviously, Louisville earning their spot at base camp with their win over Miami last night. South Florida, Memphis is still there, and then Texas finding a way to beat Oklahoma. They snuck their way back up to base camp now that they're back in the rankings. But Ohio State clearly the front runner there. Nobody's in the helicopter. Nobody was really eliminated. As far as Miami's loss last night may have made them helicopter eligible, but I didn't make that decision just yet. So this is the mountain where we're at.
No, I mean Miami played a very. I think Cottrell said in the chat, I think this is the Miami we thought we were getting this year. I don't know if it was the first, just they took Louisville for granted. Carson Beck threw 2 really bad picks. 2 other ones looked like it was a miscommunication with his wide receiver. I don't know
2
if it
of
was
them
that.
were pretty bad, though.
They were.
Bad.
2 of them were real bad. I will say this, though. They got the fumble. Went down and scored with like 7 minutes to go. I was like, they're going to win this game somehow. And then again, that last interception, it looks like the wide receiver ran the wrong route, or they weren't on the same page at least. But Louisville comes out with a huge dub. I'm not to say it's his fault, but I find it ironic. First game out after Gene picked them to be his new national champion, they lose at home to Louisville. Could be a coincidence. Could be just, I don't know.
The crazy thing about that, though, is that Miami no longer controls their own destiny in terms of making it to the ACC championship game. Georgia Tech and Virginia are both undefeated, and neither of them play Miami, and they don't play each other. So I don't necessarily think they run the table, but it's very interesting and something that will be fun to, I guess, monitor the rest of the way here.
And you know what, like I said, Louisville played great. I said we had Louisville, on our list on this mountain to start the season as a team that could, push for that college football playoff. And it took Carson Beck throwing 4 interceptions for them to lose, but to Louisville by 3. So I think Miami's potential, and I hate saying that, I hate complimenting anything Mario Chris.
Oh, did we lose him?
Oh man, it's a bad time to lose him.
He was ready to give Miami credit.
He was. That's why the universe stopped it. Universe does not allow Alex to give Mario Cristobal any credit.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened there. I will say, though, the one thing about that game, though, our waiting on Alex to get back here, is that Miami was in a spot where I texted you guys it was 7:15. Like they hadn't even scored yet. And I was like, Louisville looks like they're gonna give Miami a run for their money here. Like you could tell that Louisville came out with the game plan. They stuck to it, and they literally said, we are going to throw the kitchen sink at Miami. We're going to give them every trick play that we have. We're going to give them formations. I mean, the first drive of the game, you go out there and you play 3 different quarterbacks. You also run a fake field goal to your holder on an option play. Like that is by definition like throwing kitchen sink at somebody. So I thought Louisville came in with a great game plan, and you got to tip your cap to him getting the upset. Now, with that said, Alex, you're back. What credit were you about to give Mario in Miami?
Oh yeah, no, I would say it took Carson Beck having his worst game of the season, 4 interceptions for them to lose the game by 3. I still think that Miami, for Miami to lose the rest of the way, they're going to have another game where Carson Beck's it. And I don't know if they have that. So I think that Miami still controls their destiny as far as making the college football playoff. I don't know if they lose another game this year, but that's all I wanted to say is that it took Miami's absolute worst game to lose to Louisville by 3. So I'm still kind of high on Miami as far as their potential for the season is all I was going to say. And hey, but I was with you, Cottrell. You texted the group chat that Louisville meant business, and what did I say right back? Well, yeah, Louisville going to win, and it happened. But that's the mountain. We'll have some more movement next week after all the ranked matchups. We have 5 ranked matchups today. So obviously there's going to be a lot of movement next week on the mountain. But I think all that's left now is pick 'em.
Absolutely, Jensen. I'll go ahead and throw up our records here. Bill is
How is
starting.
Shally 12-6? How is that even possible?
He's had back-to-back 3-0 weeks.
That's crazy.
Clearly,
That's-
I don't. Well,
That's
I
crazy.
know who the good teams are, unlike Notre Dame.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead, go quick here. Since gave him picks on
It's because Bill keeps
Wednesday.
picking those Friday night matchups.
So I got
I did well with the Friday night matchups.
today. I got Washington plus 5.5 at Michigan. I think Washington keeps that game close. I wouldn't be surprised if they won it. I think Michigan may win field goal, but I think Washington's offense is pretty dynamic. They'll make sure that spread is covered there. I like Houston plus 1.5 at home versus Arizona. I think they win the game outright. Arizona's coming off of the daunting double OT loss from last week. Houston on the other side played really good football pretty much all year. I think they take care of business at home. And the last one, I got Duke. Well, I got Duke minus 1.5 at home versus Georgia Tech. That line is actually up to 3.5 now. So I wouldn't have took a 3.5 number, but because I got it on Wednesday, I will take Duke minus 1.5. I think they take care of business at home versus Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's a better football team, but for whatever reason, the betting world thinks that Duke should be the favorite in this one, so I'm rolling with them. And then for my super dog, one of the only times I'll ever get to do this, I'll take Kent State plus 26.5 on the road at Toledo. I'm just hoping that Toledo pulls their starters. I'm hoping that Kent has the momentum, getting their first FBS win in 3 years last week against UMass, and they find a way to just pick me up some points here against Toledo this week.
UMass.
UMass. All right, I will go quick as well because I gave these out on Wednesday. Maryland at UCLA minus 3.5. I'm gonna take the Bruins. I think the Bruins are finally on to something. Alex mentioned earlier, Rich Neuheisel's son being the interim there. I think they finally got on the same page with Nico, and they've won 2 in a row. UCLA went to East Lansing last week and smacked Sparty around. I think Maryland's a good team traveling across the country. UCLA at home. I'll take UCLA minus 3.5. Next, Penn State at Iowa. I have no idea what to expect out of Penn State today. Firing a coach, Drew Aller's done for the year. Backup quarterback. I'm praying I will score at some point. I mean, the way the defense has played the last couple of weeks, everybody should be able to score against Penn State. But I do think that Iowa defense is going to be really, really tough for a backup quarterback. First start at Kiddick. I hate that recipe. I'll take Iowa minus 2.5. Just talked about it. USC plus 10.5 at Notre Dame. Give me the Trojans. I think Notre Dame will weasel way out of this game with a win somehow, but I think 10.5 is nuts. I'll take the Trojans for points. My super dog, kind of like a trial. I'm hoping for some magic of the past here. Ohio State at Wisconsin. Wisconsin plus 25.5. Maybe Ohio State's up so big they pull everybody, and Wisconsin just weasels their backdoor way in and gets me something, or there's some magic of Barry Alvarez past or something going on during jump around. I need something. I need some magic, but I'll admit that. But that's my shot in the dark for Super Dog this week.
And talking about Iowa scored over 30 points 4 out of their 6 games this year. Offense has turned the table, y'all. I'm just saying. But no, for my pick'em, I'm gonna start off with the same place Cottrell started. Washington plus 5.5 versus Michigan. The line is now 4.5. I got it at 5.5.
Take them to win. They're going to. I told Cottrell that on Wednesday.
I think that Jonah Coleman I think he's gonna have a fantastic game today. It does kick off here pretty soon, here any minute now. I think it is an interesting matchup. I just think Washington's able to keep it close. I like the way they played against Ohio State. I think that if they're able to hold Ohio State to 24 points, I think they can do a very good job against the Michigan team as well. As to it's still trying to kind of figure out what their offensive game plans are going to be. And then we got Tulane minus 9.5 versus Army. Jake Retzlaff has been looking on point the last couple of weeks. I think he's got that Tulane offense humming. I think that they continue to roll against Army today. So 9.5, Tulane, 9.5 point favorites. And then I got UNL undefeated UNLV going into Boise State, 12.5-point underdogs. UNLV. I'm taking not only the plus 12.5 spread, I'm taking UNLV money line, baby. That's how confident I feel about this matchup today. And then Superdog. Last week, they played Ole Miss, lost by 3 points, 24-21. This week, they play another ranked matchup against undefeated Virginia. Look for Washington State to cover that 16.5-point spread against Virginia. I think Ole Miss is a much better team than Virginia. Washington State's defense was able to kind of eliminate their big plays, keep their quarterback in the pocket. I like what Washington State's defense was able to do last week. Not so much their offense, but their defense looks like it's finally found an identity. And I think that this game is a close. I think Washington State is still going to be some Superdog points. I think this is a one-possession game. So Washington State plus 16.5. That's my Superdog.
Nice, gents. Nice.
And that's it. And we're out.
And that's it. Gentlemen, everybody listening, watching, commenting, have a great Saturday. It's going to be full of great football. Like I said, 12 o'clock games just starting now, kicking off. So, run to the bathroom, get some snacks, get ready to watch some football. And we will be back next week. Another great show. It's going to be another great show of recaps. And I think we have a good slate next week, too. So, should be exciting. Any final thoughts from you two gentlemen?
Got nothing. Wish you guys luck today. I don't think you'll really need it. Bill.
3 time zones, bro. 3 time zones.
I think you got your hands full today, but wish you guys luck and hope you guys enjoy the slate.
I hope you lose.
I mean, you can hope that, but
that's my closing words. Is hope you lose.
Who was that directed towards?
I hope both of you guys. Hope both of you guys lose.
See, I tried to send positivity out. Wished you guys luck today and everything. That's why you lost to Indiana by 10. Jerk.
Wow.
Jesus.
That was rude. Okay, and the show before Bill starts yelling again.
Yeah, I rumor has it Kirk Signetti said Oregon's not even a top 5 stadium I ever been to in one.
I'm gonna cut you.
He said it was pretty quiet in there.
I'm leaving. I'm out of here. Just kidding. I'm back, but now I'm in the middle. End the show.
Gentlemen, we are out. I will see everybody next Saturday. Enjoy the college football. Peace.